Last year, a very cool thing kicked off the weekend, and it was the Friday night Oysterfunk, and we are talking about that again today with Kyle Hackney and Chris Swanson. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Great.
Getting ready? You excited for this? A week away from Oysterfunk, and then the weekend for Oysterfest. A lot of preparation.
Hard to believe, right?
I know.
Yeah. We're very ready.
Are you?
Yeah, excited.
Good. We got some tough questions for you this morning on Oysterfunk. Last year was the first year you did it. First things first, remind us why that kind of came about and what we saw when we went out there last year. It was a good time last year for sure.
Yeah, so last year was our first year. We have a lot of RVers who camp out overnight, and everyone is so excited about Oysterfest, which is such an amazing weekend. And we just saw a need for a Friday night party, basically, to kick the weekend off because everyone is so excited about this in our community.
Great idea.
And we have a ton of people from out of town who are looking for something to do. So we use this as a fundraiser for the Shelton Rotary Foundation. So all the money that we made last year went right back into our community. And last year it was basically beer, bands, and food. And we're kind of taking the same approach this year, just
Very
a relaxed,
nice.
That's
a
right,
relaxed,
because
fun environment.
Friday, around noon or so is when the RVs are able to start finding their spots. And so, yeah, you had to find something for them to do. And they're they're an audience that are sticking around the campground. So that's a good deal. I liked last year, too, how you had some of the food trucks in there. It sounds like as for Oysterfest proper Saturday, Sunday, they're going to have some food options inside the beer garden area. That's cool. And the bands that are playing Friday night, who are we going to hear?
So we had Psychedelic Shadow Show last year, and we've invited them back this year because they are an amazing band. They're a ton of fun, and they really span pretty much all ages, and they're just good funky music. Mm-hmm. So we started with them, and we said, who would you like to open for you? And they recommended a band called Luna Melt. They're great friends. They play a similar style of music, and we're really excited to have Luna Melt. So they'll be kicking off around 6:30. Doors open at 6.
Okay.
Luna Melt will start about 6:30, and Psychedelic Shadow Show will come on after that.
Very
So it should be a full night of music this year.
What time are you kicking people out that Friday?
I think the show's going to wrap up around 10 o'clock.
Oh, great.
Perfect timing.
That's a lot of fun.
We got to get a rest for Oysterfest.
I know you do. You guys have been busy. Let's talk about some of the other things that you're doing for Oysterfest weekend and how it's been different over the years. And we've been talking a lot about these great things that are coming up. So Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, the doors open and people will be parking and starting to come in and enjoying themselves. What more can you do to persuade someone who maybe has lived in the community their whole life and they go, there's just so many people, or it's just not my scene. I mean, I was trying to convince a guy yesterday that there's not just seafood that you can eat. There are other options.
Well, and I can take that one. So I'm not a huge seafood lover myself, unfortunately. I have to admit that.
Wow.
But I would tell you that the first several years I went thinking, I'm going to run into pretty much all seafood and have to kind of pick and choose. But there's just an amazing amount of food variety and options there. The kids always find fun things to do. And, I've got 2 girls that are 7 and 9, loving to go every year. And so it's great to have people out there volunteering. You see families, you see folks that have gone every single year for the entirety of the event. You see first timers, the folks from out of town. So it's definitely more than just seafood. And I think Oysterfest has such a great name, but sometimes a little bit misleading in that there's so much more than that.
I think that's what I was talking with Caleb yesterday. I'm like, are you going to go? And he's like, I'm not a seafood fan. I'm like, there's got to be other stuff other than seafood, because some people are allergic.
You can spend the whole day just eating desserts.
I think like all kinds of seafood, though.
I think one thing, too, that I talked to a lot of people about, that a lot of people may or may not know, is that Oysterfest is probably the greatest fundraiser for our local nonprofits in all of Mason County. Yeah. So even if you're not a huge seafood person, come and have a beer and listen to some great bands and help support our community, because these are the whole concept of Oysterfest and Oysterfunk really are that we're raising money for our community. So every person selling food, selling beer in there is working for nonprofits and raising money for nonprofits in our community.
That's amazing.
Food, beer, music, 6 o'clock Friday night, Oysterfunk. How do we get in? How do we get into this?
So you're going to park up front.
Yep.
There's 2 side gates. So the main Oysterfest grounds are not open and available.
Right.
You'll walk down the side gates. It'll be all lit up this year. We're going to have people out there directing where to go. Once you get in the side gates, you just walk straight back to the beer garden, and we'll get you in and get you a drink and get you some food and get you having a good time.
It's like a music fest.
It is. It's the whole thing. The whole
and
thing.
Something that I would note for our Friday night portion is that is a 21 and over event because it is just in the beer garden. Of course, Saturday and Sunday, families, we want everybody there, but Friday night is just 21 and over.
Well, again, taking a sneak peek at the 10-day weather forecast. I know last year it rained a little bit at Oysterfunk. It looks beautiful for Friday night and Saturday and Sunday, so I think we're in store for a great
70
weekend.
Degrees.
That's going to
be we specifically requested.
Did you get that?
Yep.
You have to put that note in early. Chris Swanson, Kyle Hackney, good to see you guys. We'll see you next weekend at Oysterfest.